Welcome to the Woodshop stop. Today we're going to show you how to make a box joint jig. We're making finger joints for boxes. Well, we start out, we're going to use this miter gauge that came with the table saw and a plywood board. This is a 3/4 inch thick plywood board. And we're going to attach it to the miter gauge using basic furniture screws, pocket hole screws, whatever you call them. Whatever you got that'll work. Just gotta hold it in place and then start the screws, and then it'll pull tight up against the miter gauge. Now I'm gonna set the gauge to the height of my indexing key. I like to use the 2-piece method so I can feel the blade as it rises. You may have another method that you like to use. But now that I've got the blade set, I can cut the slot for the indexing key. I'm using a dado set. And I've already got my indexing key made, so I've got the dado set to the right width of the indexing key. At least I thought I did. It's close, but as you'll see here, as I attempt to glue this indexing key into this slot, you'll notice that it's just a little bit loose. It's a little looser than I would like. So I'll remedy that with a little bit of tape. And I'd like to give a shout out to Stumpy Nubs. It was his video where I got the idea to create this finger joint jig. His technique is just a little bit different. I've seen a lot of box joint jigs, finger joint jigs online, and his is just a little bit different. Now that I've got the tape installed next to the indexing key, and I'm using CA glue and activator, you'll see I'm spraying the key, and now it's in place. Now all I have to do is disassemble the jig from the miter gauge, as you see I'm doing here, and then we'll get another piece of indexing gauge material. First I'll sand the back of this because there's some high spots from where the screws went into the board. As you know, that always happens. And now it's ready to be installed in a different location. I'll shift it to the left and put another piece of the indexing key in as a spacer and put that against the blade, and that'll create the space that's needed for the jig. As you can see here, I started with a shorter piece, but I did have a longer piece of that indexing material, and I'll pull that out and get the longer piece. That way I'll be able to make contact with both teeth in the front and back of this dado blade. As you can see, I'm installing it here, and I'll butt that up against the blade, and I'll butt the existing indexing gauge or key next to this spacer. And then once we've got that in position, you might want to clamp the jig to the miter gauge. I chose not to. I chose to hold it by hand in place while I screwed the miter gauge to the jig once again in the new position. You might want to use a clamp. Now I've got this thing set. It's ready to use. Now all I have to do is set the height for this dado blade to the board that I plan on cutting the joint in. And I'll use a piece of indexing key material to set the height of the blade to the board thickness. Now that I have that done, we're ready to cut the second slot. This can be done when you cut the first slot into the board that you want the joints on, or you can do it previous to that. Here I'm marking the boards A and B. I'll cut the board marked A first. It goes right up against the indexing key, and then we cut a slot. Once that slot's made, we set board A aside, we grab board B, and then we line that up with the second slot far left edge. So the edge of the board goes to the edge of the slot's edge, and then you make another pass. Now, this is the different part that Stumpy Nubs did that I saw that was different from all the other box joint jigs online. We cut both pieces at the same time. Where I marked the A and B, they have to be facing one another in order for you to get the right orientation of your boards for the joint. So you lift them up simultaneously and then cut the slots. And you're cutting both boards at once. And then we're done. We'll wait for the blade to stop, and then we'll check our work. It's a little bit snug. It's a little more snug than I'd like, but it goes together fine. You can make adjustments to make the slots a little bit wider so that it's not so snug and that you have room for the glue to fit. And that's it. So easy box joint. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, and hit the like button and share the video. Thank you.